Okay, great. Well, again, welcome everybody. Really excited that you're able to join us today. My name is Kurt Barnes. I'm a strategic account director here with Balance, and it's my pleasure to be able to talk to you about ways to potentially optimize your payment processing. Just as a quick agenda of what we're going to cover today, we're going to start out by discussing what's the problem we're really trying to solve, right? Especially in the B2B space with distributors, payment processing presents a few challenges. And so we're going to talk about what those are, and then also share a few optimization strategies to show you ways that we can improve that overall experience, not only for the business, but also potentially for your customers as well. And then we'll finish with a quick summary and a Q&A. But let's start with talking about what is the problem, what is the challenge? And to sum it up, credit cards are expensive. The cost of accepting that credit card, whether that's online or in-store or however you're accepting that payment, it eats into your margins. And so you see credit card processing between 2.5% to 3% or more. And if you are like many distributors, every penny counts, right? Every basis point of margin helps. The challenge is credit cards are important, right? It's the way that most of our businesses get paid, especially on the online method. And the reason that is because on the B2C side, right, that's something we're all very used to. But also, it also shows us that there are challenges to offering alternate ways of getting payment. And those alternatives can be either unattractive to buyers, they can be complex, it could be going against the behavior, the desired behavior of your customers, or there could be other ways, but such as offering trade accounts and allowing your customers to pay by invoice. But it's a really difficult process to get implemented online. And so as we think about how do we solve this problem, these are the three key strategies that we're going to talk about today. The first is how do we reduce credit card fees? Again, that 2.5% to 3% or more coming out of your top line every single transaction, every single swipe, it can add up over time. The other strategy we want to talk about today is going to be promoting an additional payment method, utilizing bank payments, whether that's ACH or wires. And then we also want to talk about things that we can do that improve the overall buying experience and the ways you can help navigate your customers to utilizing the payment method that's most advantageous to you. And so we can do that in a few ways, but talking about how you can dynamically personalize the payment methods that your customers are using to help reduce your overall payment processing costs. But the first we're going to talk about is how do we reduce those credit card fees? And the feedback I would give you right out of the gate is make sure that you're using an interchange plus model. And then we want to make sure that interchange plus model is optimized to utilize the data that you already have to get you the lowest rates possible. So if we think about your traditional distributor, whether you're in electrical or HVAC, or as I am in my previous life coming from the metals industry, your margins can vary from the mid twos to, for the best of us, maybe you're into the double digits, right? But generally, we're talking about less than double digit margins. And with that credit card processing being around 3%, that's eating a huge portion of our top line margins. And so you can see here going through the chart, some electrical and IT distributors won't even offer credit cards as a payment because they're then literally paying to take on those orders. And in some of these other spaces, again, coming from the metal space, we only offered credit cards as a payment method if you were doing a bunch of extra things with us and those margins were much, much higher. Otherwise, it just wasn't something that we can afford. And so if you think about the average right now being around 3%, what could you do if you got that down 50%? So if you're able to shave off 150 basis points, you could see massive savings ranging from 50, 60%. In the lower end, maybe it's in the teens. But overall, this could have a big impact on your bottom line. If you're new to payment processing, I wanted to include this real quick, just to make sure that everyone understands what we're talking about. I'm not going to go into too much technical detail, but in essence, this is the process, right? The buyer swipes a card, the distributor takes that payment, you're using some sort of gateway and processor to communicate with the card networks. That's Visa, that's MasterCard, that's Amex. And they are really helping to talk to a bank. And then the bank's giving you the approvals, going back through the card networks, back to the processor, and all the way back to you to say, yes, it's an approved transaction, or no, it's declined. So if we think about the fees associated with accepting that card, the majority of the fees are actually coming from the issuing bank. These are called the interchange fees. The interchange fees also include the network fees or the scheme fees that come from the card networks, which if you think about the total costs of accepting that payment, the majority of those funds are going to those two entities. And again, you don't negotiate with them, you don't see them. That's all way behind the scenes, since you're really negotiating and talking to your selected card processor. That card processor is also taking a cut, which comes out to generally be around 10% of the total fee. And so if you think about which of these fees can you control, you can do a little bit of control based on the interchange and scheme fee based off what we're about to talk about, sending more data and using L2 and L3 processing. But generally, you don't get to negotiate what those fees are, right? That comes from MasterCard, that comes from Visa, that comes from the banks themselves. They are going to tell the processor, these are our fees, this is what we expect. And then the processor is really marking up on top of that. So with an interchange plus model, what we're doing is we're saying, we're going to show you what we can control, and then we're just going to consume what we can't, right? So the fees that are coming from the issuing bank and from the card networks, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, you will see those passed along through, and we're going to do our best to partner and show, you being the merchant, how can we get the best rates for that by passing data? We'll talk about that in just a second. And then the processor's taking their cut, which is the plus. So it's a very cost-effective and transparent model. You get to see exactly what each party in the arrangement is getting paid, but then you're able to still do some things on your side to get the best interchange rate possible. A lot of you may have seen blended rates, right? And so this would be something like the 2.9 plus 30. Well, what's happening there is the processor is saying, I'm going to take a bet that the interchange rate plus my markup is going to be much lower than that 2.9 plus 30 over time. So I'm going to make out better. You don't get to see that visibility of what those true costs are down the road. You just see that one flat rate, but it also means you're probably paying a lot more for accepting that transaction in the B2B space. So we've talked about kind of where those fixed rates are and where those costs are. Let's talk about what you can do to reduce those with L2 and L3. So L2, L3, or level 2, level 3 payment processing allows us to pass more data to the card networks and to the issuing bank through the processor to get a discounted rate. These different levels, right, they give you cost savings because they're charging you a lower rate. The card networks are able to use the data that you're sending, which could be invoice related data or tax related data, to the card networks, which are confirming that this is a B2B transaction. And with that B2B transaction, obviously they want to pass along lower rates. That's different levels, again, depending on how much data you send and the types of data. But with L2 or L3, you're getting some sort of discounted interchange rate, and there's no impact to the card processor, right? Again, if you're using the IC Plus model, that's just getting passed along through the processor directly to you. So it's really in both of your best interests to pass that data to get those better transaction rates. The challenge with this is it's not easy. It does require sending more data. It means that data you're sending has to be sent in a certain format. It has to be received a certain way. There are more restrictions and requirements along with this program. And so it's not simply just, hey, let me toggle a switch and I've got this new pricing model for my card payments. But you've got to think about the end-to-end requirements to ensure that you're getting the discounted rate. It's not easy. And the downside is, if you don't do something right, there can be penalties. And you may not necessarily see those penalties right away, but it could actually charge you more money in the long run. And so you've got to ensure that if you're going to go this model, you're working with someone who understands and is able to help you integrate properly with the card networks to send the right data. It does also depend on your buyer mix, right? So what sorts of cards are being used, whether that's Amex, Visa, MasterCard, or Discover, and then what types of cards. So there's commercial cards, there's international cards, there's prepaid cards, there's debit cards, there's a whole bunch of different cards out there. Those two things coming together show some of, help drive the eligibility of what cards are eligible for the L2 and L3 benefits. Not every industry is also eligible, so this is something that's also important to discover before making this move. But looking at, in this case, we've got an example for the electrical distributors. What are the MCC codes? MCC codes are codes given by the card brands to determine what type of business you are. And so when you're setting up your payment processing, you're telling the payment processor what industry you're in. They will select the appropriate MCC code for you and then pass this along to ensure that you are eligible to receive the benefits and can continue passing L2 and L3. So again, something else to look into just to make sure that this is the best move for you. But let's assume that it is. If you're able to take on the opportunity of L2 and L3 processing, it could save you a lot of money. So let's talk about what that looks like for a HVAC distributor in this case. This is pennies worth. They do about $70 million in revenue a year, and about 90% of their sales comes from credit cards. The remaining 10% is coming from bank transfers, whether that's wires or ACH. With an effective credit card cost of around 3.1%, their total processing cost is coming out to be just under $2 million a year. Now, if you're looking at what that processing cost is compared to their net margin, which is around 8%, you're taking 25% or more away from your bottom line, right? And so there's a huge opportunity here to really help drive that part of your business. When you take into account both the credit card costs and the cost of your bank transactions, you're getting an overall effective rate around 2.8%. So Pennyworth was talking with somebody, a consultant. They heard about L2 and L3, and they decided to take a chance and move towards it. The challenge is they didn't think it all the way through. And so this is what the cautionary tale is. You've got to do it right. You've got to think about all of the different variables. In this case, by moving just to an IC Plus model without taking advantage of the L2 and L3, they may have actually realized an increase in their overall card processing costs. In this case, going up another 30 basis points. And so by making this change, they were not able to take advantage of maybe some of the savings that they had previously with a blended rate, but they're still leaving a lot of money on the table. So let's take a look at what it looks like if they actually did it the right way. So in this case, still $70 million of revenue, still 90% going through credit cards, but now they're using optimized interchange plus. This means they're utilizing L2, L3 to get interchange savings, those savings being passed on through the processor directly to Pennyworth themselves. And what you see here is they were able to reduce their average credit card cost from 3.1% down to 2.3%. which gives them an additional $500,000 a year towards their bottom line. Now, the fantastic thing to think about, right? It's complex. There's a lot of different steps, but in the end, you already have a lot of that data. So it's not a very difficult thing to do if you know the right things to do, or you're working with a partner who specializes in B2B and can help you navigate this path. So moving on to the second way that we can support you, it's how do we shift buyers from those expensive credit cards to alternative payment methods like bank payments. If you think about again, we're talking about the processing costs of credit cards, it's that 2.5%, 3%. If you compare that to the amount that you pay for bank transactions, whether that's ACH, wire, or other bank-related transactions, it's a massive difference, right? So in essence, your processing costs could be between $5 to $15 per wire. Maybe it's 1% or 2% for ACH or other methods. But either way, that's much lower than the 2.5% to 3% that you see with credit cards. And so by offering alternative payment methods, you're able to encourage your customers to pay with a more effective payment method, right? Again, helping your overall bottom line. It's also, there are some challenges. Again, there's always trade-offs to whatever that we do. The first is cards are really easy to work with, right? If you think about everyone's used to typing the 16-digit number, the CVV code, and the zip code. Everyone's used to it, right? We're able to do it really quickly. Anyone can have access to a company credit card, and we can go ahead and take that payment. Connecting with a bank can be a bit more of a challenge, right? So what you need to do is make sure that you're providing your buyers with a hassle-free way to connect your bank accounts. That could be either using simply typing in accounting and routing numbers. It could be integrations with the banks themselves where you type in a username and password. But however you think about it, you want that customer experience to be a very easy, hassle-free method for getting that bank account linked. Another challenge is that cards can have benefits. We all love our points. We all love those travel miles. I paid for my honeymoon with Delta Sky Miles. So I definitely live and breathe by the points that I receive in my cards. Small business owners see all of their purchases as a way to take those vacations and other appealing benefits that come along with using those types of cards. In their mind, they're not having to pay for the benefits that those cards are providing. But you are, right? You are in essence funding those trips and those points that you're using by those interchange fees that are being passed along. So how do we solve this problem, right? And so this is another opportunity where you can start getting really personal with your clientele and offering them either direct or even what we call a dynamic incentive to encourage payments using the ACH bank payment method. And finally, sometimes cards are the only form of credit they have, and cash flow is tight, especially nowadays. So a lot of businesses are moving more and more of their purchases to credit cards. Again, that's a challenge to merchants who are trying to lower their credit card acceptance costs because right now everyone's pushing more and more on credit. The way you can solve this is actually by potentially offering account terms or a trade account or a pay by invoice type of experience directly into your checkout experience. Give them another form of credit. And so there are services out there that, and we'll talk about balance in just a moment, but that can allow you to have a single checkout experience that incorporates alternative payment methods like ACH and like a pay by invoice. In the end, offering these additional payment methods help drive those costs down, right? So we're talking about reducing your payments costs, not just your credit card costs, but payments altogether. And so so far, we've talked about L2 and L3, reducing those credit card costs, but we've also talked about presenting alternative payment methods to reduce those payment acceptance costs altogether. Now, we talked a little bit about those problems. Let's think about what does this look like, right? What sort of solutions? How do we make it really easy for our customers? And so the first is to make it super simple, frictionless experience to be able to connect their bank. Again, if they are able to connect their bank, they're able to make ACH or other payments through their bank rails, saving you lots of money. And so we've got a variety of ways with the Balance platform that we can help you. And so I definitely encourage you to look at these and others to look into offering these types of payment methods with your online experience today. As you can see here, we give multiple options to be able to connect with bank accounts. Some can be instant, some still may take a day or two. But the goal here is to be able to offer enough methods that no matter which method they take or whatever the information they have access to, they were able to find a path to connect their bank. So this could be via directly logging in with username and passwords. It could be with sending 1 or 2 penny transactions back and forth and having your customers authenticate that way. Again, takes a couple of days. Or they may be able to directly enter account number and routing numbers into an online experience, and we can save those numbers securely, allowing them to use bank payments as a future checkout method. The other we talked about was being able to offer payment terms, right? So if you think about you've got a customer and you want to give them access to some sort of trade account where they make purchases and you send them an invoice. Maybe it's 1 invoice a month, maybe it's an invoice for every single purchase. But being able to offer this dynamically at checkout, and not just the payment method itself, but the end-to-end process where everything from identifying that customer, recommending a credit limit, doing all of the appropriate underwriting, creating that credit limit, and then sending it, allowing them to use it at checkout. All of that can be handled with modern tools, including Balance. With this, you're giving customers the ability to pay in a way that they've traditionally paid with distributors for a very long time, but in a digital format. And so there's a lot of advantages with this. There's a lot of comfort with this type of method. And again, you're not now charging them or being charged high credit card fees. You're giving them a better experience, one that's easier for them to manage with their AP type of processes, without having to create everything from scratch from a technological perspective. Finally, the last optimization we want to talk about is how do we dynamically adjust the payment methods that your customers are using? And this is really important because now we're talking about having your customers help you. And so one way to do that is to evaluate what are your buyers interested in? What makes them tick? Why are they choosing certain things over another? And so you want to be able to look at this as, well, how do I try to drive buyer A a certain path and buyer B a different path? Buyer A may use expensive credit cards. So in this case, we may want to say we push them to bank debit. Buyer B may use debit cards all the time, and then we want to push them a different direction. So you want to be able to build policies that help drive the right behavior by types of customer or segments of customer, but you've got to be able to do that at scale. And so you can do that through a variety of different methods. One could be offering surcharges or rebates depending on the credit card method. Oh, excuse me, the payment method. In this case, you can see that we've added a 3% surcharge for every credit card transaction. This means that in addition to the total that's being shown on the screen, the customer will also pay that additional 3%, covering the credit card processing costs. However, if they were to choose the bank debit, they'll get a 1% discount. Either way, you end up ahead. So it's a very important way to try to navigate that customer to doing what's best for your business without creating any additional friction on their side and allowing them to easily check out. Again, we're talking about having the different policies for different types of buyers, right? So you can see here, there's different types of buyer segments that have different payment method preferences, different access to payment methods, different interests in what they're doing, or maybe even different types of contracts that they have set up with you. And so as you think about going through this process, map out your customers, identify the types of customers and the experiences that you think will be most important to them, and then give them the way to check out online with the payment method that's most beneficial to you by putting all this together and then creating the best experience for them. As you can see here, there's just a couple of examples, and I kind of already hit on this, right? So it's the ability for buyer A, you're driving them a certain way versus buyer B. So you want a solution that's going to be dynamic enough to handle all these various computations that you've put together at scale, right? You don't want to have to build each one of these out one by one. That would take a very long time, and that gets challenging in itself. But if you're able to segment everything and then set policies by segment, then the customer experience is going to be adapted to that individual buyer who's coming. They'll fall into a specific category, and then the payment experience is going to help drive them to hopefully the best decision for your bottom line. So if we come back and we start thinking about pennies worth once more, in this case, we've talked about lowering their credit card costs, but we've also talked about helping drive some of their payments away from credit cards to alternative payment methods, such as bank or pay by invoice using net terms. If we're able to shift about 40% of those payments, we're going to see a additional $360,000 of savings. And so what we've now done is taken that total processing cost from 280 basis points down to 190 basis points. Again, another significant savings for them. And so If again, now we take that full picture all together, right? So I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, apologies there. By combining both of those, we're now dropping it from that 2.8% overall to the optimized IC and ACH usage of 1.42%. So we've cut our total payment processing costs in half, but we've also started providing our customers with an overall better experience too. They feel like they have more choice. And a lot of studies have shown that the more choices that our customers have, the more likely they want to come and spend with us. And so we're able to not only improve the overall customer experience, but we're improving our bottom line as well. So in summary, right, payments is not just have I given my customer the ability to pay with a credit card. It's something that you should be reviewing on a regular basis. You should be looking at what is my payment strategy. Am I partnered with the right partner to help me with this? Am I offering the right payment methods that my customers want? And am I offering the right payment methods that are helping me reduce my costs and increase my profit? Low-hanging fruit, obviously, is credit card optimization, right? Just being able to work with a processor who's able to send extra information, to have the right pricing model, and to understand the components of that pricing model so that they work in your benefits. That's the lowest hanging fruit by far. Adding additional payment methods, another low lift in general, but a huge value add for both your customer experience and again, your bottom line. And then as we continue our digital transformation journey across all the different types of distributors out there, we continuously see that B2C-like experience coming to the forefront. How do we sell more like what I'll mention Amazon and others out there, right? How do we make sure that we're making it easy for our customers to buy online? And so being able to give them that right B2C type experience for accepting all the different payment methods, whether that's credit cards, bank, ACH, or net terms, we want to be able to give them a really, really easy way to complete that transaction and pay us the funds due. The great news is all of this can be done in just a few months. This is not a difficult thing to do. It's something that just gets ignored and assumed as this is the only way to do it. And what we have is working, so let's just leave it be. But the potential impact this can have on your business, especially if you're in a lower margin type of distributor industry, the impact could be massive. And so it's worth the exploration, it's worth the implementation. And overall, we hope that by focusing on payments, creating that payment strategy, you're able to reduce those costs and boost your overall profit. So I've mentioned Balance a few times. Obviously, we are a platform that is here to help drive and partner your B2B transactions. Our platform is segmented into a few different areas that we really focus on to help drive the overall payment strategy of your business. And you can see it's broken up into a few different ways here. We focus on B2B payments, and that's everything from the experience as well as all of the different payment methods that we've talked about today, being able to support that from an end-to-end process, including sending out invoices and helping your customers with that great experience select the payment option that's most beneficial to you. In addition, with our trade credit solution, we're able to do credit risk management, which helps us underwrite your customers, allows you to offer your services or your products to more customers, or at least offer them on terms when generally it would be too cumbersome or margin prohibitive to support SMBs. We're able to help you support them at scale. And then we also have financing capabilities as part of that. So being able to not only underwrite and offer a recommendation for a credit limit to a customer, but then we can give you those upfront payments. It's very similar to a credit card where as soon as that transaction has been completed and the order is shipped, we're able to process, send out the invoice, and put funds immediately into your bank account. And then in addition to all of this, there's the second level, it's the operational level. How can we help with your accounts receivables process as well? So one thing is just to accept the payments, but there's a lot of behind the scenes work that needs to be done to ensure that those payments are being allocated to the right place. And so with our AR automation capabilities, we're giving you all of the abilities to make sure that reconciliation and cash accounting and cash applications all being done properly and and as much of an automated process as possible. But we're also allowing you to offer solutions to your customers, such as a buyer portal or other ways to interact and engage with the payment methods and the offerings you're giving them. So again, you're able to give this and support your payment programs and your net terms programs at scale to all of your customers, not just to the largest. There's a lot more here that we can do, but overall, Balance's goal is to support you from a B2B perspective. How can we ensure that your business supporting other businesses is operating as efficiently as possible when it comes to managing all of the different aspects of accepting those payments and ensure money gets to the right place. So I hope, again, we've hit through those 3 different optimization methods. Again, the challenge here is how do we reduce those costs that you see on accepting payments, and by offering multiple payment methods, making those dynamic, and then focusing on the credit cards, making sure you're getting the best price possible, we feel like you can have a great impact to your bottom line. If there are any questions, please feel free to add them to the chat. I really appreciate your time and attention, and if we can help, please feel free to reach out to me. My email is here at the bottom, and so if I can answer any questions or even offer to start helping you navigate how do we start? How do we even look into this? Again, please feel free to reach out. Thank you very much for your time.